All right, so now class, what we're going to do, we want to find the midpoint of these two segments. So it's very similar to what we just did with the distance. So we're given 2 points, and what we want to do now is find the midpoint. So you think of the word midpoint, I'm going to find the middle point. So the point is always going to have a coordinate, so it always needs to be in this form of x comma y. So we always have an x, we always have a y. It's always a coordinate point on in our coordinate plane. So in this first one, I want to find the midpoint. So that means I'm finding the middle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my horizontal distance, I'm going to find the middle. Then I'm going to take my vertical distance and find the middle of that. So from here, if I look here, I'm at -3. This one is at +1. So I want to go middle between -3 and -1. So that middle would be -2. So right in the middle is somewhere along in there. Then I want to get the middle of my vertical. So I look there, that's at +1. This down here is at -3. So halfway between +1 and -3, I'm looking at a number line, it's going to be -1. So where those two, my middle, intersect, that is going to be my midpoint. Now there is a formal formula, so you can, if you just graph it, you can figure that out by just looking at it, figuring out where the middle parts are, or we can use this formula. So we can use x1 plus x2. I want to do that formula first, and we're going to divide by 2. So basically just averaging the two x coordinates. And then comma, so that's my x part of this number. So this number, if I were to graph it, would be -2. And then if I look there, that's -1. So my midpoint should be -2, -1. So now we're going to check this formula and see if it works as well. So y1 plus y2 divided by 2, that's going to give me my x coordinate and my y coordinate of my distance formula. So I'm going to sub in my x1, so that is this point right here, so that's -3 plus -1, so that was my x2, so those are my 2 points. I'm going to add those together and divide by 2, and then I'm going to do the same thing with my y. So my y, for that one, my y1 is -3, yep, -3, making sure, plus my y is +1, divide that by 2. So then remember, we want to add those together and divide by 2, so that's -4 divided by 2, comma, -2 divided by 2. So if I were to simplify those, -4 divided by 2 is -2, -2 divided by 2, -1. So if you notice that the same thing, whether we use the formula or whether we use graphing. So that's that one. We do the same thing here. So let's just use the formula for this one. So we've got x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So this point right here, that's 2, -1. And this point right here is -2, 0. So I'm just plotting my points on there. So my x's are 2 plus -2 divided by 2. And then my y's are -1 plus 0. I want to do that first, and then divide by 2. So -2 plus -2 is 0. 0 divided by 2, it's going to be 0. And then -1, that's -1/2. And you can't really simplify that anymore, so it's -1/2. So our midpoint is 0, -1/2, which if you looked at our graph, looks like it falls in about the right spot. So now if I have this where I don't have a graph, I could graph it and then find the middle point, or I can just use my formula that I have here. So I'm not going to write out the formula again, but if I were to add, so I'm going to do 5 plus -4, I'm dividing that by 2, and then I have 2 plus -3 divided by 2. So then 5 plus -4 is 1, so that's 1/2, comma, -1/2. We can't simplify those anymore, so that would be my answer. And that is how you find the midpoint.